The film is shot on 16 mil, which is really rare, especially for a debut feature. Could you talk a little bit about that choice, and was it always vital for you to shoot the film this way?
Yeah, so I shot the film with the cinematographer Jody Lee Lipes, who is someone who I've worked with on a couple shorter projects. And something I've always kind of felt since even writing the script was that it needed to shoot on film, mainly because a lot of my favorite personal projects have been shot on film, and I shoot a lot of music videos and commercials on film. And it's really not only, you know, the texture, the color, the look and feel of it, but it's also the way the whole team works in that sort of environment. I think everyone's really attentive. The whole camera department, the lighting department, the actors, everybody is like very much prepared in a way that I think shooting digitally sometimes the environment isn't. And when Jody came on board, I was initially thinking about 35 millimeter, but then he suggested 16 millimeter because of the subject matter, but also the time and place. I think, you know, we're a low budget film, but also it's set in the mid 2000s. And so it kind of allowed it to have this kind of nostalgic and tangible feeling, even while having very composed shots. So it kind of created a nice contrast that I think complemented the tone and the feel of the film.
Definitely, and the film is so intimate, and I saw you say in an interview that you like hid the cameras occasionally when you were shooting. Could you talk a little bit about that technique or others that you might have used to elicit the performances?
So something that was really important for me is that creating an environment in terms of filming that would enable actors and new actors at that, a lot of which this is their first time acting in anything. So to create an environment where they feel comfortable and feel like they're not being watched, feel like they're not being lit. So oftentimes our lighting was very minimalist. Our camera was quite far away. We didn't want the camera to be right there in somebody's face while they're having quite emotive scenes. So we would shoot on kind of longer lenses down the hall or in through a doorway to create this distance from them, and so the actors could almost do the entire scene forgetting that the cameras were even there. And oftentimes it would just be me, myself, Jody, and a couple other people in the room with our actors. And that just enabled them to have enough space to do the whole scene.
Yeah. Could you talk too about casting a lot of first-time actors? Tia is brilliant. She's really wonderful.
Yeah, so I knew I really wanted to have a lot of people from the community, from the Bay. There's something about the way people in the Bay speak that's very specific. And I also wanted to have like a layer of authenticity and to bring mothers from the community into it, to have a kind of documentary aesthetic to the film. But then so we did a lot of street casting, which I hate that term, street casting, but we cast a lot of people either from doula groups or from the street at local fairs or from mothers groups, all kind of, and also musicians all throughout the Bay Area. And they were all extremely important in that casting process because they each brought something completely different. Tia, for example, is a mother. She was a recent mom and training to become a doula. So she was very much ready for the role when we were casting her, and ready for the challenge. And then we had someone like Doechii, who we all know as a musician and performer, but she also had that comedic timing that was very specific. And then we complemented that with people like Erika Alexander and Sharon, Duncan, Brewster, who are both really established and experienced actors. And they were able to kind of balance off of one another. and Bokeem Woodbine. It was kind of a really beautiful balance between these experienced actors who knew what it was like to be on a set and people with a lot of amazing instincts. Keita Price, who plays Mel in the film, the guys in the film, Bruh from Last Night, that's what his artist name is, and James. And so that whole group really, they all leaned on each other. So it feels really special. I wish they were here to say this to you as well.
Yeah, hopefully they'll reach a deal. There are a few things I wanted to unpick there. You said you wanted the film to have a documentary feel, and I know you've made The Heart Still Hums, a short which touches on the same themes. I'm interested, why was a narrative feature the right way for you to tell Gia's story?
So oftentimes I think fiction can almost be as truthful or even more truthful than a documentary film. And specifically for this subject matter, while I was doing the short, I was thinking about what would this be like as a feature length, and it started to raise some ethical questions for myself, which was, what if I was to film something that could, in fact, impact whether or not someone gets their child back? And what would I feel like in that situation? And I didn't want to be put in that situation. I also didn't want to put any of the mothers I was working with in those sorts of situations. So for me, it was like I would rather take, hundreds of people's stories and listen to them, research them, and create a story that kind of was more symbolic than specific to one person and their life story.
That's really beautiful. I think, Gia is such a cipher in the film, and I said there's so much empathy there and a real gentleness, and it's something that we, as the film shows, we don't often extend to people in those circumstances. And I'm curious if through the writing process or pre-production process you ever got any kind of notes that perhaps suggested, to not be as empathetic with Gia.
I think from the first draft, I feel really lucky because I worked with Film 4 and A24, who were both extremely sensitive to what I was trying to make. And I think from the very first drafts, they knew that this was about being sensitive to the lead character. The question that was raised was, can we strip away our judgment and in fact walk beside Gia, our lead character, while she's going through this very difficult circumstance? And I think everyone was on board from the very beginning, which I feel really lucky for. I don't think there was ever a moment where I felt like people were questioning, are we the sensitivity to that character. Nobody questioned that. I think the tough part always comes in just typical filmmaking processes, which is, how much money do we have? Where's the budget going? Or could we cut some of these scenes and have the same sentiment? But I never felt like people really were questioning that sensitivity, which I feel really grateful for.
That's good. Even though it's set in the mid-noughts, it kind of probably couldn't have been made then with that sensibility.
Yeah.
So that's lovely to hear. And another thing, the film was first put on my radar by a friend who's from the Bay Area.
Oh, cool.
She saw it at Sundance.
Oh, cool.
She was like, make sure I hope it gets picked up, for release. And
that's so cool.
And because I don't know the area at all, so this feels like a cheat because it's kind of her question.
Okay.
But she said that she'd never seen the East Bay in particular represented so accurately, the urban and the nature alongside itself, which is of course, key to the film. And if you could talk just about the setting and
well, I think shots. Yeah, thanks. Well, for me, it was really important is getting the feeling of being in the Bay. It's not specific to any specific location within the East Bay, but it is specific to the feeling of it. and this kind of like suburban world where it feels very concrete and there's a lot of pastel colors, but then right beside you, you have the trees on one side and you've got the water on the other, and they both serve as escapes for her when she has the time, or maybe just in her mind, to escape from her reality. Oftentimes those nature elements are so close, but they feel so far away when you're kind of claustrophobic in your systems. And so I wanted to create that sensibility in this film. And it was really important to kind of give insight to her inner world and where she feels claustrophobic versus where she feels like she can escape to her roots, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And, a scene that really stuck out to me is the car rally scene, or is that what it would be called? Like a rally?
A sideshow.
A sideshow, that's what they are. Okay, cool. That scene was so powerful, going from car to car and hearing the music and the confrontation with Doechii's character Trina. First, actually, I'll talk about that character because I found it really interesting how the kind of leaning on Christianity as a bit of a crutch, and not necessarily a motivator.
Yeah.
And if you could talk a little bit about that thread in the film and with her character.
Yeah. Well, it felt really important to think about faith and what that means to different people, and spirituality and what that means to different people, because that plays such a big impact on people's choices as parents. And so if I left that out, I think I would be avoiding huge subject matters with regards to these topics. So I wanted to bring that in and show that in different ways. We have Mel, who's a little bit more spiritual, and then we have Trina, who has this kind of, it's her version of Christianity. And then, there's also different symbolism throughout the film in different areas. And I think all of those serve as impacts on her, or influences on her decision, Gia's decision as a parent, whether that's positive or negative. And it makes her question her choices. And so I wanted to show that, especially because a lot of the mothers I was researching and a lot of the mothers I knew growing up, or my best friends growing up, sometimes they were preaching to me one thing and then doing the complete opposite, And so that was really impactful for me. And so I wanted to kind of put that thread in there.
That's great. And the sideshow, I think I'm more curious about the shooting that, what that was like, and with 16 mil and with a smaller crew. Just talk about
the sideshow is definitely our biggest setup, and I think from setting it up in the pre-production all the way to sound, it was a really big task. So from pre-production, I had this idea, which was to shoot it. We were kind of building up to that moment. We were shooting on a dolly. The whole film, there's a lot of dolly tracks, and it progressively gets longer and longer. And then I had this idea to make the longest version at the sideshow and shoot it all from one angle and kind of put everything on that side of the angle. And so I drew it out roughly, and then they were like, maybe we should get some storyboards. So we storyboarded the whole thing out and kind of drew out everybody's positions in the scene. And then we had a day or half a day of rehearsal of that scene. And then we had a full night of shooting. And unfortunately, it was the shortest night of the year. So we had a very small window to shoot this scene. And I think we, got it at maybe the last time we could possibly shoot it. So everyone was so tired and exhausted because they're staying up all night. And it was a very big task. And they had to hit all these marks. And a lot of these are... Actually, nobody in that scene had ever acted before. So they're hitting crazy marks and emotional beats throughout that whole moment. And, the car is doing donuts. And when the car does donuts, you can't hear each other. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't scream at them or tell them anything. So it was like a lot of tension, but that adrenaline really helped us in that scene. And luckily, we had such a great group of people to do it. And then from a sound perspective... Bokeem, who was our sound designer, he was incredible because we decided to play into the sound of the car doing donuts, which is like this eerie, kind of annoying, like aggressive sound, and how that plays. And then we also played with different music that's playing from different cars at different moments. And then we also have an element of like musical composition from Kelsey Lou, which is almost plays like her heartbeat throughout the whole thing. And that heartbeat dips in and out of the bass thumping from different music compositions from the cars. So there's like so many layers of sound in that that was really fun to construct. And I think our sound designer, our composer really worked well to create that tension and that contrast that you're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. And even from a writing perspective, it lines up perfectly with her headspace. And yeah,
Thank you.
Really wonderful scene. I wanted to talk about Gia's job in the film because I thought it was a really interesting device to, introduce a wider conversation about different kinds of family as well. And could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So Gia works at Photo Magic, which is a portrait studio. And in that portrait studio, she is kind of helping to compose family photographs. And these photographs are kind of, what was beautiful about making that her job is that she's in direct contact with people's versions of a happy family. And that could be friendships, that could be siblings, it could be mother-daughter. It's all these different people's versions of a happy family, and she's helping construct that. And I think in a way, in those scenes, we're able to see what she dreams for herself, but also what she misses. And so we feel her longing in those moments, and we also see her creating, being this like creator of love and support. And so for me, those were really beautiful moments where she can be in contact with people and her community, and we get snippets of those people and those environments in those moments.
I'm guessing they were non-actors as well?
Yeah, all of them were non-actors. I saw this guy in this show, Last Chance U, which is about football players in the Bay Area, this one particular episode, and his name's New, and he really stood out to me. He's a Samoan guy, and so I reached out to him, and he played the couple with his wife, and then his wife Tia, and then I saw one woman at this coffee shop, and I really wanted her to be in it. I saw another person on a street fair and really wanted her to be in it. So all of them have been kind of different snippets of the Bay Area, and they kind of show that side of our community.
That's great. It's wonderful to hear how involved the community was in the film. I'm not sure if it's been released in the States yet.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what the reception has been.
Yeah, it was released in the States in the summer, and we actually did a couple Bay Area screenings, and they were all able to go, and it was probably the most emotional screening, having everybody there with their families, their grandparents, lots of tears and hugs, and it really just felt like I heard a lot of people saying it was very healing for them, which was really nice. So yeah.